Aye.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sick, so. Yeah.
I can see, I was good about.
Thank you so much.
So which one is email?
Email.
Email, this one here? No, that's what I was.
I don't know.
I was. Oh, let me get you.
What? That's fine.
Now it's gonna say, now it's gonna ask you when you're ready to get this place. Here it is. It's gonna work. What's that? Good morning. Those that are able, if you would stand and join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the county board meeting.
Morning.
First item of business is going to be, do we have any additions or deletions for our agenda? Tabitha has none. Does anyone else have any additions or deletions?
Make most to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second. Okay, got a motion and a second. Further discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Our next item of business is, as Matt said, employee recognition. I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Another great way to start off the board meeting. I like to look out and see all those in attendance today. So those being recognized, thank you for being here, and those coming to support those being recognized, thank you for being here as well. Gentlemen, you want to know what makes Morrison County special? It's been sitting right in front of you. Today, we're going to recognize a portion of the 21 employees that hit a 5-year milestone this quarter. Those 21 employees account for over 300 years of service to Morrison County. And that's fantastic. That level of continuity and commitment to an organization directly contributes to the level of service we're able to provide. So we're taking a moment today. This is just part of you staying with the county. This wasn't the nomination or recommendation. This is due to your commitment to this organization. So we pause today to recognize your service here in front of the county board. So as stated before, I'll read you off at 5-year increments. I know not all were able to attend today, but most are here. So our 5-year recipients start off with Logan Swinford. Next up, Lisa Watson. Congratulations. Lisa Cone is here. Courtney.
Oh, thank you for enough.
I think it is closer.
Thank you.
John Zibzalka will be in this afternoon. And ladies and gentlemen, these are your 5-year recipients.
Center? Can be. Center guy? Center guy. And we take directions from Tabitha. Who's really center?
No.
Or we take directions from Joseph. Beautiful.
One more hand for our 5-year, please.
Thank you.
For 10 years, Juliet. Congratulations. I think Jordan is out, Geisy. And Jordan Doroff as well. Cherokee.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm not sure. And we've all really enjoyed.
Bruce. Bruce Rexton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Congratulations.
You're gonna do the second.
Please give a hand to our 10-year recipient.
Congratulations. Thank you.
You have to take directions from the pictures.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hide.
Come on, Dave. Come on up here. Don't be shy. You know, if it's not a conviction, we're in trouble.
Done. Hey.
And for our 15-year, Angie Loscheider. And Casey King, I didn't see Casey out doing God's work. So we'll move on, 20 years. Carrie Herman, Doc Carrie. Good morning, Carrie. Congratulations. Thank you. And Jared. Thanks for bringing the support.
Yeah.
Judy. Judy Liddell.
Fast.
Come on up, George.
You get to work.
All right, 20 years. Give my hand, please.
Yeah.
Can you see? No, yeah. You gotta listen to the people taking the pictures.
Yes, but good.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. One more hand for the 20 years. All right, now we're moving on to 25, Sharon Peterson, 25-year recipient. Robbie Hoffman, I don't believe is able to make it. Denise, 25 years. Denise Vogel. Denise is our representative for our 25-year class. Give her.
Again.
We're gonna take one group photo. Oops. Okay, the phone's ringing, you better go. All right, a hand for Denise.
You're all gonna come back.
Oh, we gotta cut them in.
Excuse me, sorry.
It's okay. 30 years, Melanie Erickson. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. All right.
One more hand for Mel.
All right.
And our dynamic duel of longevity champions, both with 35 years, Sherry Walensky and Jody Luck. Thanks for all the input.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you. Look towards the camera. So, big.
All right, and all of our recipients, please come on up. Want to have the board seated?
Thank you.
Board can sit.
We're gonna just put the board at this diet minutes here.
Sorry.
I'm telling you, son, you move. No hiding of faces.
I know.
Yeah, if they can photograph, folks.
Please make sure you look at the right camera.
I got it.
All right. Thank you very much.
I'm on your page. I get now.
We're gonna take just a little pause while everybody gets organized before we continue.
It's so true.
I know.
Okay, I didn't see it out there.
Land Services.
All right, we're gonna get back to it. We're gonna continue on. We've got number 5 on our agenda is the approval of our consent agenda. I will look to the board if there is anything on the consent agenda that anyone would like to have pulled or that we should have further discussion on. If none, I
Make
would
most
look for
of
the.
it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Got a motion? Look for a second. Got a second from Commissioner Casper. Gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Casper.
Aye.
And myself, Commissioner Jelinski, is an aye vote. That motion passes. Our consent agenda has been approved. We will now move on to item number 6. Item number 6 is land services. I'll look for Ms. Amy Kowalczyk. Good morning. Good morning, Ethan.
Two items for you today, and I'm just gonna see which one is first.
Shmia.
Thank you. This is to consider the conditional use permit for Randy Schmea. This is to continue and expand a boat and agricultural equipment storage business. This would also include the addition of a 60 by 152 shed. This was recommended for approval by the planning commission with one condition, and that is storage rental items shall be placed within the buildings on site. No outside storage shall occur.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
make most approved.
got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second with Morris discussion.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion. Commissioner Winter.
Again, I was at the meeting that evening and Mr. Shemaya, that place I drove by there for 30-some years. Has very well been taken care of. He's been really upkeeping it. The concern I had is the no outside storage. That was put on as a condition, and I believe, because again, he had one boat there, I talked to him, that was his own personal boat that was wrapped. So, so that people might construe, but he had no complaints. And I would like to change the condition to allow him to have at least 10 outside in storage versus, because he'll put them in the back of the building. Again, he does such a tremendous job of taking care of his place. He cleaned it up over the years and you would have no problem. So my recommendation is if we change the condition to allow them to have 10 additional outside storage boats, which would include his own.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I just wanted to clarify, the way this is written, it was accepting out his personal items. Because I have stored rental items, so it was, so yes, if he has personal items, that was not a part of that condition, but you're looking at allowing up to 10,
Additional outside,
10 rental
yes.
items.
Yeah, because he had over 12 here just recently, and again, you look at it, it's so cleaned up, he had them in the back, I don't think that would be as a problem, but that's my, motion or, addition to the condition.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
so you can put them behind the buildings where they're not visible then?
I don't know if that's included in the condition, and maybe that should be conditioned.
Yeah, we could condition, he'd be happy if you could store them behind the building, the 10, shed, whatever.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this was discussed with the applicant, and these are his wishes?
Yep.
Okay, so he would like to store up to 10 boats behind the northernmost, storage building?
yep.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering.
Mr. Chair,
yes,
I have no problem with that.
and I'm looking at the rest of the board, I'm seeing heads nodding, I'm not hearing anything. Further discussion,
Mr. Chair, we just need to amend the motion with the amended condition.
I'll make that amendment.
Well,
I'll second.
it was made by Commissioner Lemire,
Mayor, we have-
seconded by Commissioner Winchell.
okay. Further discussion. Hearing none, those in favor,
Aye.
those opposed, that motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The last item I have is to consider the conditional use permit for Curtis and Janice Plant. And this request was to expand to a Tier 4 swine feedlot. This would include the addition of a 122 by 280 grower barn. This was also approved or recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, and no conditions were recommended for this one.
Gentlemen, I look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
We've got a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second more discussion.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
yeah, I got a call yesterday from one of the neighbors. Just saying, you know what? I'm all for the hog barn. Is there something that can be done about that stink? And I know that there was a lot of the discussion that evening, last Tuesday. And I'm just wondering, I don't know that we can condition it, or you could possibly put teeth in it. You know, another compost shed, I don't know.
Mr. Chair?
Please.
I think it was, the applicant admitted that the compost in the past had not been adequately managed. So of course, that is going to generate more odor than what typically would be done. So I think it's coming more, most of it is coming from the compost facility and the management of that facility. So the condition could be regular check-ins by our, we're not going to condition our feedlot officer, but we could have a condition where the applicant needs to have that regular interface with our feedlot officer, and that he manage the compost according to the Minnesota Board of Animal Health guidelines.
That would make good sense.
Further, please.
How do most hog barns, get rid of their dead?
The larger the animal, the harder it is to compost effectively. So some will render, and then usually it is compost, but it is, to keep that pile hot and processing, you have to actively manage it. And like I said, the larger the animal, the more difficult it is to keep that going. So it has to be a very dedicated effort.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I received some phone calls also, and we all know smells are a subjective thing. What's offensive to one is not offensive to the other. But they say it's really, really bad. They also say that he's a really good farmer. He manages his manure really well. He manages his farm really well. It's just that lingering smell. So is it possible to put, if, I know this is gonna stink, but
I like
I didn't
that.
mean that,
No problem.
but, if the rendering isn't managed, no, if the composting isn't managed well, that they will be forced to render? Is that a condition that can be put?
Mr. Chair?
Please.
Yes, that's certainly possible. That would be something that the feedlot officer could monitor. And then it would be the call of the feedlot officer to determine whether or not that compost pile is being adequately managed and then to make that judgment call.
I believe soil and water even said it was pretty bad there too, so, and I know it's difficult enough being a farmer nowadays, it just, you know, we have to think of the neighbors too. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Winchell.
Thank you. A tier 3 to a tier 4, we don't have too many tier 4s in our county, do we?
Not very many tier 4 hog facilities, no.
So my question is, if this is approved by the board here, the MPCA takes over.
That's correct.
So then they would have their own rules and regulations about the smell and would not go back to, if you explain that to the county?
Mr. Chair?
Please.
Not necessarily. So we have kind of 2 layers of regulation. So when the feedlot gets to the size that this one is, the oversight for compliance with the feedlot rule, the Minnesota feedlot, Minnesota 7020, will be administered by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We still have local rules that, and that's why we're here for the conditional use permit, is we have local rules and performance standards that a feedlot still must abide by, and our feedlot officer would handle that. He would not be doing inspections for compliance with Minnesota Rule 7020.
Okay, and then, again, I know the answer to this, but again, the question was brought up, this 93% odor smell. Could you explain that to the public out there, what the offset would, that means, please?
The offset is a model. It's a modeling tool that was developed by the University of Minnesota, and really what it is, it's a odor predictor is what it is. And so it's assuming the prevailing wind is always from a certain direction. It's there's some inputs in there where you input the type of animal, the number of animals, the type of structure they're being held in. If there's any vegetative screening, the closest neighbor, you input all of these things, and what it does is it generates a rating, and in this case, it was 93%. And essentially what that rating is it's a predictor that 93% of the time, the odor coming from the facility will not be not so much noticed, but not be annoying. It's the annoyance offset rating. So it's really, it's not saying there's 0% odor, but it's just saying 93% of the time that odor will not be offensive.
And then, Mr. Chair, my final comment question is, again, they are good at managing their farm. They're not good at managing the smell. A tier 3, and now they want to go upgrade to a tier 4. What consequences if we put the rendering on there? I mean, if, again, it's the smell is someone's own perception of what that is. So what would be the consequences to this egg producer if people start complaining about the smell, whether there is none or is no condition for that? What would the consequences do if Commissioner Lemire said, if we say, okay, you're not doing it properly, again, every at the meeting, well, we promise to do, well, promises can be broken if there's no condition. What would we way to go to make them remedy if the smell is there?
Ms. Amy?
The condition wouldn't, the condition gets at odor, but the condition is you need to properly manage your mortalities. And there is a guideline on what proper what proper management looks like. And so are you regularly turning the pile? Are you regularly adding carbon? Are you regularly doing those? So the condition would be looking to see that he's adequately managing that according to guidelines. It's not about odor at that point. It's about proper management. So really what the condition is to ensure that he's properly managing them, which in turn should be reducing the odor. So they go hand in hand, but we're really not monitoring the odor. We're monitoring the management of the mortalities.
And if he's not managing, and then we have a condition that then he's gotta start rendering, is that like, 6 months, does it take a year? We say, okay, we'll give you a chance, 3 months, 6 months. That's my question.
Mr. Chair, I think that would be up to the board as far as how long you have an expectation for him to turn that around. So
Can I comment on your representing person as you can sooner than later, but yes, but not for great question. Yep, that's fine. Commissioner Blaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amy, because this is, then moves to a tier 4 speed lot. And you mentioned pollution control Department of Ag has oversight once this gets to a tier 4. Their oversight includes manure management. It includes oversight on management of animals. Does it also include oversight on management of mortalities?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
It would, to an extent, we would certainly make the MPCA aware that if there's an elevated condition on here, that needs to be scrutinized. We can't enforce our local requirements on the MPCA to enforce, so they would work collectively then with our feedlot officer. However, yes, that, proper management, they're certainly going to be looking at whether or not those are adequately managed according to Board of Animal Health. So that is something that they definitely would be looking at when they're doing site inspections. However, site inspections may only be once a year, or once every 2 years. So the frequency at which that would be happening would not be under our control.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Amy, would it be within our purview as a county board to instruct county staff to, let's say, inspect this facility with regard to this issue, to the management of the mortality on a scheduled basis for, let's say, at least a year in the effort to make sure that issue is addressed to the effect of neighbors.
Please, Ms. Amy.
If you were gonna put a condition on there, we would craft it so the condition is not on our department. It would be on the applicant. Because we're conditioning that permit, we're not conditioning our office. And so what I would suggest if you wanted something like that is that the property owner shall allow inspection on a quarterly basis or something like that, or at a particular frequency where it's a condition that they allow that inspection to occur and that they accommodate those inspections when they happen, and you can set the frequency at which they would allow those to be happening.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I also received several calls from several different people in regards to this, and as you all know, Ripley Township used to be, prior to reorganization, if you will, Ripley Township was a township that I was near and dear part of. It was in my district. What I did was I prepared a little bit of a statement rather than thinking of this, that, or the other thing. So I've got several bullet points that I would like to address. Number one, in conversation with the individuals that I conversed with, filters need to be changed more often on the barns. Could be. My understanding is there are filters of one type or another that are on the ends of each one of these barns. Maybe, just maybe, they are not being changed often enough. Bullet point number 2, decomp bin. And folks, I gotta tell you, I do not know what I'm really talking about. The dead animal goes somewhere, I'm calling it a bin, and thus I'm calling it a decomp bin. Based on conversation at the planning commission meeting, and simply based on my understanding, the barns may not be the cause of the stink coming from the facility. I'm told that 7% of the time is the percentage that you should smell an odor, stink from the barn. If I'm correct, and if you only smell that or those barns 7% of the time, where's the stink coming from? Again, based on what I heard at the planning commission meeting, the decomp bin is where the finger or fingers are being pointed at for the smell. I don't know what's being done to cut the smell from the decomp site, but it seems to me that this needs to be addressed. I heard, or at least what I understood at the planning commission meeting, that Mr. Plant, Kurt, or at least, or excuse me, or Wakefield were working on the smell that they had enlisted the University of Minnesota to help with the stink. One might say that the neighbors that I spoke with are saying, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. Let's fix the stink before another building is put up. My understanding from talking to these folks that I've talked to is, number one, no one has called land services and complained about the smell. Not one person. Number two, I will all but guarantee that land services will be getting calls if we do not address the smell. Number three, I want to compliment the neighbors. None of the neighbors I spoke with are anti Mr. Plant. None of them. They all get along and they simply want the smell to go away or at the very least be cut back. Another bullet point. It won't change today, probably not tomorrow. But what about planting more and more and more trees? Maybe 10 years from now, 20 or 30 years from now, maybe the trees will help cut the stink rather than doing nothing and the wind tunnel simply stays as is. I agree with the planning commission that yes, we do live in a farm community. Yes, we absolutely support farming, but the folks absorbing the stink truly were there first. It would seem to me the pig barn operation needs to be good neighbors too. One resident I spoke with has been there for 15 years, and they are not interested in leaving. They want the stink to be cut back. They want to be able to utilize the air exchanger in their house, which they can't. They cannot use their air exchanger because of the stink. They cannot hang clothes out on the line because of the smell. The smell simply needs to be addressed. Personally, there is no if. There is no if it stinks. It stinks. Maybe the smell is not coming from the barns, folks. I don't know. But that is what I think we talk about when we talk about an offset rating or a percentage rating. We're talking about the barn. And if it's true, and I go back to 93%, 7%, whichever, doesn't matter which end we look at, doesn't matter at all to me. If that's the barn we're talking about, and pig barns are going to smell, chicken barns are going to smell, and folks, I understand all that. I get it. That's odors. I understand it. But this is not a normal odor that we're talking about. So if we need to talk about the pig barns, maybe there is a smell coming from the pig barns. Maybe they need to be addressed, and maybe filters need to be changed more often. Heck, I don't know. But I think what we need to do right now, and we've talked about this, the board's talked about it quite a bit so far this morning, is what are we gonna do with the decomp ban? If I or anyone else drives onto that property, based on what I'm told, it stinks. Now, is it stinking? Is the smell coming from the barn or is it coming from the decomp bin? That's my statement. Gentlemen, I'm gonna look for further conversation. Commissioner Blaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amy, if we were to, other than, trying to restructure this in my mind here, but other than the, perspective put forth by Commissioner Lemire on saying that, if management of the decomposition building wasn't improved, that we could force them to go to rendering. Is there other, do we have other opportunities for enforcement other than an example like that?
Chair.
Please.
Not in our toolbox. The Board of Animal Health does lay out those standards. If it amounted to a violation of the Board of Animal Health standards, it might be something that they would look at. Beyond that, as long as that facility is operating, you're going to have mortalities that will have to be handled in some way. So short of, he'll have some mechanism for handling mortalities that come out of those barns, because if they're stocked, you're going to have mortalities. And so
I guess I'll cut to the chase if here, maybe to help you a little bit. So, if the permit was granted, and I think, so I'm torn on this because from every indication and from the folks that have talked to me, I'll echo the same comments we've heard from the rest of the board, and the fact that the owners do a stand-up job in operating and managing this operation there. With manure management, the management of the barns, and that it is, we're talking about one specific area of their business, and that's mortality disposal. My question is, if the permit's granted, no action is taken by the board as far as a condition or conditions that says you need to address this, and then we walk away from this. Is there any reason for the owners to change management on this other than maybe pressure from the neighbors? Or is there a point to at which time either the county pollution control or the state of Minnesota can say you need to cease operations because of insufficient management?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I think in order for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to pull a permit, it would have to be so egregious and so mismanaged. And I don't know that we're at that point with that. To be honest, I don't know how much the MPCA spends on evaluation of mortality disposal when they're looking at the overall facility. Mr. Chair, if I may, generally, when we have a public hearing and we have an applicant who there's a demonstrated issue, obviously, generally, the burden is on the applicant to come up with, what can you do to remedy this? What do you suggest? What would you like to do? So at this time, Mr. Chair, I think it would be important to hear from the representative from Wakefield to see what they suggest and what they intend to do that could be something that, instead of us trying to really dive into the operations of this facility, talk about what they're planning to do operationally, very specifically what they're planning to do operationally.
Please go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Before this gentleman would come to share with us, I have to ask the question because we have a number of hog rearing facilities within Morrison County. Do we, you know, and I realize there are, we have the regular complaints that we have from dairy facilities, when manure lagoons are being pumped and applied, and of course, nobody likes to have to drive by when we're pumping pits. For at least for a day or two till everything's worked in. But that being said, do we hear overwhelming complaints from other hog facilities in the county because of mortality management?
No, we do not.
And so my point with this, and I'm certainly willing to hear from the individual here with us this morning, but looking at working with this producer to, if they're doing a good job of managing basically every other part of their operation except this, I would feel somewhat confident that they would have the ability to improve management over this area to respectfully operate, I will say, within the confines of their neighbors there too. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll yield to your desires.
Gentlemen, there is a gentleman from Wakefield here with us today, and quite honestly, I appreciate that. And I will ask him to come up front and discuss with us whatever it is you wish to discuss. I will make it very clear, I'm not asking the individual to come forward for a debate. Debating is done. Questions and answers that the board needs to hear. I think I compliment Wakefield, the company, for being here today. So, sir, if you want to come forward, feel more than free. Please come forward. I would ask you to identify yourself, et cetera, if you don't mind.
Yep. I'm Lincoln Langhorst, co-owner of Wakefield Pork. The other co-owner is my father. We ran the business for 32 years.
Okay.
And I am here to answer any questions. I'm certainly not in for a debate as well, so.
Well, the beautiful part of you being here today is you've heard the board's discussion. I know you're more than well aware of what we said prior to this.
Mhm.
I know you've talked to some of the neighbors. I know you have. And I'm gonna reiterate from myself. If this facility is located across the road from my residence, if I'm told at the very beginning that, yep, I'm gonna have 7% of my days are gonna have a little bit of an odor, probably a lot of bit of an odor, whatever it might be, but that's the world we live in. That's the farm world we live in. I'm probably gonna be okay with that. If you're gonna tell me I'm gonna smell it 97% of the time, and it's not just a smell, it's not just an odor. I'm sorry to tell you this, Lincoln, it's a stink. Where do we go from there? If the barns truly are 93% compliant, that's the wrong term. 93%
Offset rate.
offset rating, if that's true, hallelujah. What do we do about the rest of the stink? And please.
Yeah. And I'm no expert on offset ratings as much as, some others are here either, but, the 93 and 91%, the different things that you hear there. It is 93% of the days will be odor free and 7%, if the wind is prevailing towards your direction for 24 hours a day, 7% of those hours in a month, you will smell. That's the offset rating. That's not a judgment thing. That's a science calculation. So we don't, do that.
Okay,
As far as to address the compost, when we were starting to talk about this project with Mr. Plant last spring, we realized this is an issue. Until then, there had been no reports in. We weren't aware there was any issue. So the action we took right away this spring was to take half of the compost. And if you're familiar, it's there's different bins because you keep certain bins warm the whole time with carbon sources. So you can't just say, okay, we're going to start all over and then we have nowhere to go with compost. So we took half of it out and spread it out and replaced with fresh material. The reason for not doing that isn't because of cost. The material, whether it's horse waste or anything, is virtually free besides the trucking in. So it wasn't like we're trying to save money there. Just wasn't aware that it wasn't working as well as we had hoped. Okay, so we replaced that with efforts of this fall. Once the crop's out, we replaced the next half. I think at the meeting, you'd heard multiple times that since the spring, it's gotten better, but it isn't 100%. And it's never going to be 100%, but it shouldn't be a nuisance to somebody of what they're arguing. And we want to be good neighbors. The last thing we want is bad neighbors. In fact, the two people most against it, their kids work at the facility. So I don't want you to think that this is something we're doing on purpose in trying to create conflict. We operate a facility almost exactly like this, just on the other side of Little Falls with the Casellas. It's the same rendering. It's the same, virtually same size facility. And we've had zero complaints since 2006 when it was built. We operate and work with 35 other families in this county that all have hog facilities and all have rendering. I feel that they do a pretty good job and we haven't had any other complaints. I agree. There's something here that isn't working. But since we found out, we've took an action to replace half the rendering with the next half this fall. We've had U of M experts come out and analyze and tell us if there's anything they see we're doing wrong. And their best advice was to change the carbon source. For some reason, it's just not working and try to turn it more often. And that's what we're trying to do. So I just want you to know that, that's part of it. And then when they say don't add another barn, part of this barn, and it's kind of a pig thing, but what we're doing is we're keeping some baby pigs on site because this is a genetic multiplier. So these pigs the female piglets that come off this site are raised to be mothers, not necessarily their traits for meat consumption. And so what we're trying to do is keep those on site. So when we add compost, there's going to be some more sows that are larger size, but half this barn is anywhere from 6 months to 3 weeks of age. And so the animals are much smaller than what's going in there today. And so it's not necessarily, thinking that this is a doubling of size or enormous amount more of compost. It all meets the regulations that we set in and we're doing what we can to, fix it on our behalf.
I would beg to differ with you with the regulations. You put in a 93% offsite, and that to be the barn. I was on the board when we created that, or when we allowed to have this hog barn put out there. Quite honestly, I don't remember. Like the best thing, I do not remember at all. Did we even talk about the compost site? I'm anticipating we did not. Nor did I or anyone on the board know that, that compost site is gonna smell. 7%, please, and correct me if I'm wrong, or 93%, whichever end you want to look at it, is the smell from the physical barn. Is that correct?
Correct.
If everything is equal, the wind's blowing the right way and la, 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 7%. Could be more, could be less, but that's what it is if the multipliers all fit in together. But we have never, that I'm aware of, and if I'm wrong, I want somebody to say, no, you're wrong. We have never talked about the compost site because quite honestly, I don't know that it's ever been brought to our attention. Been brought to my attention. Been brought to my attention. So you're gonna allow them to build another barn and it still smells? You haven't done anything? And thank you. I heard what you said. You have done something. You're trying. You enlisted something. So I'll turn it over to the board. Look to the board. Commissioner Lane?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Sir, you've been to this facility? You've been on the ground, you've been on the grounds of this facility many times?
Many times.
You acknowledge the fact that, to us here, that there's a problem with this composting facility.
The days that I was there, and it's not like I'm standing there for 8 hours outside the barn. I generally walk from my vehicle into the barn. And fall times of year when we're moving manure, and spring times, you're outside the barn, but it's not. I didn't personally have that experience. I would challenge if it was affecting somebody that much of the time, why didn't we know about it? I mean, we don't want anybody to live in Ford. That's not our model long term. We won't survive. We just didn't know about it. And when we did, we're doing things to fix it.
Okay, so you do acknowledge though that to us now that there is an issue there with the management of this composting facility.
Yeah, once we were aware that it was affecting these neighbors as much, we took immediate action and hired experts, and the neighbors themselves agreed last Tuesday evening that it's gotten a lot better.
Okay, and you also acknowledge then that because you had mentioned the Casella facility that's down in Bellevue, right? Correct, Commissioner Winchard?
Correct.
That there's a problem with their composting facility there and excessive amount of odor, the management of that composting, and mortality of management at that facility.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
may I ask a question
Yeah.
that kind of dovetails into yours? When you're out on site, I know you're looking at the barns, do you evaluate the compost
Absolutely.
and how it's being managed?
Yep.
And is there differences between how what is the name, Casella compost is being managed versus the plant?
Because composting is a relatively new technology. It's not absolutely perfect, but I don't know what is. It's being managed exactly like the rest of our other facilities. For whatever reason, if we got a material in there where the carbon wasn't working as well as it should have, we don't know, and we can't come up with that. The University of Minnesota person couldn't come up with anything. And when they were there, I think, if you around the facility, it does not stink 100% of the time, or we wouldn't want to work there ourselves, or would we have employees that want to work there themselves? I think there's days where it does, and if you're there at that particular time, I'm not arguing the neighbor's complaint, but yes, we are managing it exactly the same as other ones, but we're open to suggestions. What I want to just warn a little bit is when we go to rendering, through a lot of experience with that is going to be very tough, especially this time of year, to not be worse than what a compost is. What happens when you render animals is you put it in a pile at the end of traditionally a driveway or a field approach, so this truck can come when it can within a few days. That's just the rendering industry. Those animals, I don't know if many of you are, it gets
it's tough in it's tough in the summer and the bigger the animal and you get days where you get 4 days in a row when it's 95 degrees out and that animal's not been picked up. You got problems. You can be a mile away and you know that you'll know they're there. Mr. Chair, where I'm going with this is, I need to have a little bit more comfort, that you have the ability and the plants have the ability to manage that mortality bin to a point that, that is not offensive, to the neighbors, there, or that would give us, significantly better results than what have been, than what's been taking place in the past. I haven't been on the facility. I don't necessarily need to go to the facility. That's your business, and I'm not gonna dive that far into this. But whether I'm having a hard time, understanding whether or not, how the carbon could be different if we're using poultry manure or horse manure or other carbon sources to filter, through that decomposition process, that we're not getting the same results that we're getting at other facilities that your company manages, out there. Other than the fact that, maybe the operators there are in error. That there isn't enough significant churning, that there isn't enough time spent, churning, managing, or dealing with that issue out there. I'm here to try and help you find solutions. I'm not here to hang things out on the line. If you feel confident that, we should, and I feel confident you should be able to duplicate the same results that you're having at other facilities on 35 facilities in Morrison County, that do not have an extensive, amount of odor that's abusive to neighbors out there. And I'd like to see that achieved at this facility. But I also have to balance that with representing the other people that live around these facilities too, that we will provide some oversight and some options into doing that. So as much as I'd like to move this forward, Mr. Chair, I think it would be important for us as a government body to have some oversight on a scheduled basis, to make sure that progress is being made, with this, at least for a 12-month period. And I appreciate that actions have been taken in the past and results have been better, as you're sharing with us and as neighbors have shared with us. But I kind of like to see us get to the completion with that.
And I appreciate you helping. I mean, I think this is a great conversation to have, and like I want to explain, we couldn't have replaced it all this spring, or you don't have compost and it makes things worse. So we have our next batch scheduled as soon as the harvest happens. Our barn manager, that I'm not there 24 hours a day, that perhaps did something wrong, was in attendance and spoke at the meeting and is very well aware of the issue that is happening. He has mentioned he's going to try turning it more often as he can. We've employed the experts from the University of Minnesota, and we can keep doing that with a report annually, or whatever's appropriate there. We have no problem doing that, and we continue to replace things to try to make it better. So I guess what I do want to caution is if we're gonna do our best, and I can't guarantee anything because I would be lying. But am I pretty darn sure with our proven track record at 35 sites in the area that it's gonna get better? I'm pretty sure. I would ask, has the county had any complaints prior to this permit being mentioned?
Not to me. then.
And not that I'm aware of. I will absolutely tell you that I think, again, play on words. Kind of like a lot better versus better. I think it's better is what I heard. I never heard anyone say it's a lot better, play on words. I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Chair, again, bringing up, listen to Amy, how long was this facility there as a tier 3? Remember?
The conditional use permit for the tier 3 was in 2017.
Okay, so it's been about 7 years as a tier 3.
That's
hog
correct,
facility.
yes.
Okay, now again, it's gonna be going to a tier 4 hog facility, and I know plenty of tier 3 hog barn facilities. I know the Casellas very well, and again, he's comparing Casella to this one, not even close. And the reason is, go out there, the distance between buildings, houses to this one, to what you're doing. I mean, yeah, because I know Kevin very, went to school with it. They do a great job too. No complaints. Because he's way out there. There's no houses probably within a half a mile of that place. So again, when you look at this one, people, when you say, have you heard a complaint? Most people came to us when it's a tier 3, we have a good discussion, that sort about it. But once that barn gets there, again, this is me, barns, I don't think those hog barns stink that bad. They do when you're cleaning them out. This issue has with decomposing the animals. And, he brings up rendering. I'm born and raised on a farm. I understand rendering is, out there, and that's sort too. And it's more expensive, I believe, than it would be for decomposing, the pile on it. How we address this is, again, he's having a hard time with the tier 3 odor. And these people now know, hey, yeah, it was smelling for the last 4 years, but it was, the permit was approved. I really shouldn't complain. Now they're starting to say, hey, you're going to a tier 4. There's gonna be more animals there. The decomposition is gonna be more. That's where I have the challenge with this here, where the Wakefield or whoever's having a hard time managing this with a tier 3, what are they gonna do with the tier 4? I don't know what the correct answer is, but this rendering, you gotta put a little fire under somebody and say, you know what? If we don't get this under somewhat control, there's gonna be consequences. There's no consequences if we approve this permit. Yep, we're trying, but we can't get rid of it. So I don't know, Amy, I don't know the rest of the board, what we could do. I kind of going back to Commissioner Lemire that we maybe should put a condition on rendering and having it, the applicant allow us to come in here quarterly. And if it doesn't meet his standards, we're gonna have to him start rendering until it's approved. Just the thought. I'm done, Mr. Chair.
My train of thought came back also.
All right.
I believe, based on the people that I've spoke with, the reason that Amy's office, if you will, Land Services, has not gotten any complaints about smells are absolutely because of the operator, because of Mr. Plant. Number one, very nice guy. Number two, gets along with his neighbors very nicely, works with his neighbors, understanding, got a stink problem, but has tried to work with them. I believe that's why. I further believe if we do nothing, kind of sit on this one and don't do anything. Can't guarantee this, but we might be getting flooded at planning and zoning calls, and I wouldn't blame folks at all. Further discussion from the board. Not exactly sure where we go. Part of me says, you know what? I think what we need to do is we need to fix the smell before we build the barn. That's just one thing that comes into my mind. Of course, it's a financial picture here. I get that. Another one is, okay, you're building the barn, you best be building on that decomp bin site more and more and more the whole entire time too. Are you planting trees? I'm not a real big believer in that, only because my vision doesn't go out 30 years. 30 years from now, yeah, trees might make a difference, but we're not doing that at all. We're doing close to nothing until recently. And we're doing something, so don't misunderstand. But we're not coming up with different thoughts, ideas to do this. So I don't know.
Mr. Chair, at one point, would it be possible to move that decom pile farther away from the facilities? I don't know if that's in the working or would be in the working.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
from a zoning standpoint, it's certainly possible. We treat the compost facility as an animal holding area, so it does need to meet the same setbacks the barn does. So if there was another location, it's possible. I like I said, from a zoning standpoint, as long as it's meeting all setbacks, it is possible on our end.
Where that barn is located, I'm anticipating that you would never do anything further north. But I certainly would think, I don't know this for a fact, if you were to do that, you would have to go south and east and south and west, if you will. Certainly wouldn't go north.
Yeah, the barn addition is to the southeast of the existing facility.
Okay.
And it meets all setbacks according to your county and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And it is still, managed and overseen by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
The thing that I don't get, and I probably never will get, is, yep, it's a 97 offset rating. It's only gonna smell 7% of the time. There's really nothing anybody can do. It's really all a good guess. Just a number that's created by someone, a scientific number, that if everything is just the right way, the wind's just the right way, the sun's shining, whatever it might be. Okay, thank you. We got a 97% offset rating. What the heck does that mean? It smells at my house. But again, that's the barn. Talking about two things here. We're talking about barns and we're talking about decomp gardens. Or facility. Gentlemen, come on. What do we
Mr.
do?
Chair, with all due respect to my colleagues on the board here, Commissioner Wincher, moving the mortality facility anywhere on the property doesn't address the problem to me. And I'm not going to, with Commissioner Jelinski, I don't want to cloud the water here or muddy the water with offset ratings on that are reflective of odor coming out of the fans in the barns. To me, the issue here is the management of the mortality facility within this business operation. And I had asked the question before about how much enforcement and oversight comes from the state level, because if this is to pass, this moves this facility to a tier 4. And our reach on within county governance becomes, in my mind, less and less, and the oversight becomes more and more on the state level. I look at the swine industry in Morrison County as an integral part of our ag economy, and it's been a growing one, and it's been good for a number of sectors within the county. My point on this is we can do this. And Wakefield's proven to us that they can that they can manage mortalities at other facilities in Morrison County. And have done so in the past and have a track record of doing that in the past. But there's a reason why we're not achieving that at this facility. But they believe that they can. The track record of all the rest of the business of that facility, I think is positive. So I'm still looking at, as far as we can go as county governance, the oversight that we can have that can help ensure that we get the same kind of performance at that facility in managing mortality that we're getting at other Wakefield sites in the county and in the state of Minnesota. How we do that, I guess, I'm not sure, other than to say we'd like to have the ability, and we'd like to inform the owner and Wakefield of the fact that the county would like to have the ability to come out there and take a look and make sure that work is being done to get us to that level of performance that we're seeing at other facilities. And by no means in saying that are we giving some type of guarantee or message to neighbors that a tier 4 hog facility in your neighborhood will produce 0 odor, or it'll be X number, a specific number of days a year, you will be the only time you will smell that. And that's part of that. That's part of that give and take of living in the egg sector, having a rural residence in the egg sector, but we also have a responsibility in the egg sector of being good neighbors and being responsible managers for our facilities. But I believe that we can duplicate the same performance at this facility. It isn't because it's in Ripley Township or it's in the northern part of Morrison County on the sand or anything else that it's I believe that this is an internal management issue, that it has to be addressed and it has to be maintained for sustainability reasons. Mr. Chair.
So I would look to the board, perhaps I would look to our Director of
Land Services.
Land Services, thank you. With the question, and I'm looking to the board and our Director of Land Services and Wakefield, how do we condition this? Folks, if we do nothing, the people that I talk to are going to be calling Land Services, period. End of discussion. And they're not just gonna call once. So where do we come up with, how does a condition read? Do you have to do your best? I hope they're doing their best right now. That doesn't make it to me. How do we do that?
Mr. Chair, before they answer, I guess I'm gonna ask this question. I'm trying to get us to the end game here. We draw the scenario that we as a governing body and would have the opportunity to do spot checks or to check in on the progress on this on a, let's say, a quarterly basis over the next 12 months. And insufficient progress is found. Obviously there isn't a lot we can do because this would be a tier 4 feedlot. This would then be addressed or directed to be addressed by Pollution Control Agency, Minnesota Department of Ag. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
even though this facility would be under the oversight of the MPCA. That is regarding the Minnesota Feedlot Rule 7020. We still have that local permitting where he still can't operate unless he's got a conditional use permit from us. And the conditions that we place are our responsibility to enforce. So if there's a condition that on a quarterly basis, we're checking and that this is not getting better, that, but that condition has to have very clear expectations. If the operator continues to be in violation of that condition, which can be quite subjective, actually, then that comes back to the board, and you do have the ability to modify the CUP at that point, up to revoking the CUP at that point. But I guess what I would ask, Mr. Chair, is, you know, when you're looking at granting a conditional use permit, you're looking at those criteria questions, and you would need to be able to say yes to all of those. And if you can't say yes, then you'd be looking at, okay, well, what conditions could be put on this that would make that a yes? So I think that's really it. You know, are you at the point where you find that there is a condition that could be good, that could be placed on this, that would allow you to say yes to all those criteria or not? And I think there is a motion on the floor for approval without any conditions at the moment, I believe.
That's correct. That's correct.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
so then the question that we are having conflict in is the request will not be detrimental to the use of enjoyment of other property within the immediate facility.
Big question.
That's the one that we have to.
Correct. And then
have
you
a
would
condition
be,
for, which is
and then you would
correct.
need to look at, is there a condition that could be placed on this permit that would allow you to answer that in a yes?
I would love to be able to answer that by saying, absolutely, we're gonna add more charcoal to the facility. And that's just a statement that means nothing, because I have no understanding of how this works. But if that would take care of it, yes, we're gonna add more charcoal to the facility, and boom, bing, bang, boom, it's done. That's not a very good condition.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please.
and again, put an end game on, I'm not into, you know, I think we should give them 2 years, but they should be required to let soil and water come in there for 2 years straight, quarterly. And if, like you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if they're in violation of any of these times over 2 years, that we could call them back and we could put a condition on them and say, okay, you're gonna start rendering animals for that. Something we could do.
Mr. Chair, it's certainly possible, I think, for us, for the being able to determine whether or not it is being managed correctly. I think they're gonna have to keep some sort of records, just because you know, these are essentially best management practices that we're talking about, as far as how often they need to determine. Essentially, what they need to be doing is determining how often that pile needs to be turned. How often does the carbon source need to be replaced? What kind of carbon source is effective here? What, you know, all of those things. And so really it's, there's tweaks along the way. None of them may or may not be, you know, in compliance or following best management practices. So it'd be very subjective for us to determine whether or not that's properly done. I mean, yes, the answer is yes, it can be done. But then I think we certainly are going to have to be making the case and have that argument with Wakefield about what proper management of a compost facility looks like. And so we will have to be making the case to you over the arguments of Wakefield that they are not handling it correctly.
And in all respect to my colleague here, Mr. Winter, if it goes to rendering, and if the owners of the facility place dead animals at the end of the driveway for a week, whoo, I don't know, I have no idea what we've gained at that point in time. In fact, we have probably gone two steps backwards. I'm just saying, talking about nothing. Just
And
kind of-
then that's a good point that Amy brought up. What consequences is there if we even come in and check it on quarterly? I mean.
If we checked every day, what's the
See,
consequence?
that's-
I say, I don't understand
See,
that.
that's a tough question for me to go with two. What are we gonna do? Or what can we do? Because yeah, we're gonna take their word, yeah, we're dealing with the University of Minnesota and we're doing our best. Well, the stink is still there. Everybody knows dead animals smell different than hog barn. You can go down and walking down the road and smell a dead carcass. It stinks much different than the manure. So I don't know. I would even like to see if with Commissioner Casper, this is in his district, what his
That's it, Commissioner.
that's in my, I'm sorry about that, but I haven't heard Mr. Casper.
I think it, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I think it'd be reasonable to have Wakefield or Mr. Plant, as some of you have suggested, check in quarterly for these couple of years. That way they're gonna stay on top of it. I don't know if you need to change to chicken manure or what it's gonna take. Something's gotta be changed up. And I think, we've got a good field man that'll keep an eye on it. And I think, I'm hoping the neighbors will let us know if they see an issue. I think they will now that we had this meeting. You know, we're concerned for them. We want you to raise hogs. We like pork. We love pork chops. But, we want to make sure it's done to the best to satisfy everybody the very best we can.
You know, if you're looking like for action items, because I know you guys have to report back to these people as well, and you know, the material we had been using seems to be doing better. So when you say change the material, I think, you know, we're working on that, obviously, and with plans to do it again this fall. If it's annual reports, you know, I don't know what that is as far as activity logs of what we've done. Like you said, we can put that down. We have no problem submitting that. If it's planting trees around the outside, tell us what trees work best. Aster growing trees, we'll plant trees. We're not here, we're here to fix the problem. Trust us, guys, we're in business long term. We don't want this type of issue or reputation on us, the plants, our employees, the industry, or anybody else, especially in this county that we do business in.
So gentlemen, we've got a motion on the table. We've got a second to that motion. We've had a lot of discussion. My question, boldly speaking, is there a condition we need to put on this? Or are there conditions we need to put on this?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I think there again, we can put a condition on there that either Mr. Plant himself, the farmer, or Wakefield will report quarterly to the county how their composting is working, what their plan is. That they stay on top of this and that the county can make visits out there at any time to see how is it working. And that is, I think it becomes somewhat subjective when you have a Mr. Wall, he's quite familiar with these situations.
So a condition could be quarterly reports by, I'm gonna say Wakefield / the owner,
There
if you will. And what are they gonna say? That we've been composting, we've changed things up, and what are we looking for? The report's fine. I can get the report and thank you. The report's fine. What's the report gonna say? Or what should it say? Anyone?
And again, I'm just.
We need, sorry,
No, you go
we
ahead.
need something that if it doesn't work, this is what you're gonna have to do. That's what we need in order to answer number 2. Do you have any suggestions on if you continue composting and the composting doesn't work, then I know money is a factor, I know, and is there other methods to get rid of the mortalities?
Well, I mean, if you look, technically there's incineration. But then again, that's gonna be worse than rendering and compost. You know, if compost is, or if rendering something you guys really think is gonna fix the situation after so many years, of failure at this, we certainly am open to listening and, can do that. It's one of those things I can't guarantee you guys today,
Yeah, I mean.
but I can't guarantee a lot of things that happen in this world
it's like
100%.
there's no other option.
But,
Everything else is worse than what's worse, so it's.
but can we provide quarterly activity logs? So if you're saying, hey, I'm still getting people complaining, let's change up what you're doing, let's change your routine, let's change the material. If it's consulting an expert amongst anybody, we'd love to have you guys come out and visit as much as you want. Have you guys been out to observe it at all?
I haven't.
Would it be fair to say to have Wakefield contact the neighbors and be in, I'm gonna use the word constant, which doesn't mean every second of every moment.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Constant, conversation with the neighbors.
Absolutely.
And neighbors, if you've got a problem, you can call us too,
That's
besides calling Amy's office.
Yeah, before the meeting, we attempted to do that, and, you gotta remember, the two people that live closest, their kids work at the facility, so we are, we're there, whenever they're there, we can talk to them, we're not avoiding them, so you well understand that. We appreciate the feedback before it gets to this level. We don't want, in any permit meeting you do, I think you guys have been through it enough, if there's a neighborhood issue, let's get her resolved or at least talked about well before the meeting, so you guys don't have to go through some of the drama. So absolutely, we can stay in contact and they have our numbers and we're neighbors, so.
Thoughts, Miss Amy?
Mr. Chair, I think, when we look at the quarterly reports and all of that, but I would not want to have to put the burden on the neighbors to report
No.
whether or not this is better or it's worse or all of that,
Yeah.
or have the unit of measurement be, well, we haven't gotten any calls.
Yep.
We know that people tolerate a lot and don't say anything. It doesn't mean they're not bothered by it. And then also putting the onus as much on the operation, than on the feedlot officer, or the neighbors is important. And so I think, it really is up to you on whether or not you feel that those will allow you to answer that second question in the yes.
Gentlemen, this is my last thing. I'm gonna go back to that comp pile. Again, I know they have to meet setbacks and all that. Is it possible for if they don't, again, the criteria under that question, that compost pile is the problem? It's just too close, even though it meets the setbacks. If it's 1,300 and some feet from the clear, if they move it back to 2,500 square feet. Again, the farther you're away from something, the smell's not gonna come. Is that a possibility? I know it's gotta meet all the soils things and all. Would that work? Yes, no, maybe?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Zoning standpoint,
Right.
as long as they're proposing to cite a different facility that meets all setbacks from a zoning standpoint, it's not an issue.
But when you say it's facility, the facility's going where it is. Okay, the compost is 100 feet away, 20, I don't know.
Yes, you're talking about relocating.
Just
the compost.
relocating the
Yes,
compost.
and I said, as long as the compost pile continues, wherever they're gonna put it,
Right,
as long as that meets, if they find another site
right.
on the property that meets all the setbacks, that can be permitted by us. So
That to me is the only thing that, because we're doing everything, again, there's nothing smell. And again, I smell different than Mike does, I can see something, but that, moving that comp pile to me would be the only consequence that we could give them. We don't have to have them do it now, but if that's all I have, I don't have nothing else, but otherwise, just leave it alone. I'm just saying, because there's nothing else we can do.
Gentlemen, I need a little help.
Mr. Chair, if you look at the screen that was in front of us and the language.
Yep.
Not in bold under number 2, then maybe we don't make this so difficult and simplify this and just say the condition would be that proper operation of the mortality compost must be adhered to. then the onus is then on the owners of the operation, and we feel then on the plans that there will be proper operation of the composting facility. And I think that in a nutshell, we've talked about a lot of stuff, but I think that it's the big beef or the big rub with this comes back to, in my mind, insufficient management of the mortality part of this operation. And so maybe I've been thinking this harder than it has to be. And we just state that for this business to be sustainable, that will be achieved. Or the board has the opportunity to revoke the permit to operate.
Miss Amy, is that, I'll let you finish rating. Because I'm guessing you're rating it. As Commissioner Blaine explained it. Does something, utilizing the words of Commissioner Blaine, who happens to be a farmer, I don't believe he's ever been a hog farmer, but who
I was in before we were full-time dairy.
in the early days, he was a hog farmer.
Yeah, I know all about pigs.
If that condition is anything at all, or if it's just words. And I realize that the smell to Commissioner Winchell and the smell to me are two different things. I got it. That's not the question today. The question is how are we gonna get rid of that stink today?
Mr. Chair, so proper management of mortalities should dovetail into reduced odor. But when the condition is that proper management of the mortalities shall occur, that's what we're going to be looking for, is proper management. We're not really going to be looking at odor. They should go hand in hand if it is. So there's always going to be some odor, but those piles should be hot enough that it should repel rodents and should repel anything, and it should keep it, keep that biological action going. So really what we're not going to be measuring odor. We're going to be looking at, are you observing the best management practices for proper compost handling is really what we'd be looking at.
So let me ask this question, and I'll ask you as the representative from Wakefield, in your opinion, is there a place on this property that could be located or could be relocated, where you could relocate the compost site that would be more than 50 feet away? Commissioner Winter, the numbers, more than 1,300 feet away, maybe 2,500 feet away. I'm just talking out loud. It's all good. Is there a place?
Well, I wasn't prepared just due to the setback model.
Yeah.
I can't answer if there's a place that is allowed by setbacks. We could certainly look into it. It's not like we're opposed to that. But obviously need to know what available spots, because in these, there isn't a lot of available spots. The reason it's located where it is now is due to close proximity to the barn. Yeah, this would be good.
Yeah.
So it would be, which one? Nope, that would be a shed
I'm sorry. It's the next one, this one.
right there. Yep. Yep. And so what that allows is for the mortalities to get in there. And really what that is it's there because it's protected away from the wind. We can get a gate around it, so no wildlife can get in and drag stuff around or do anything. And so that's why it's located where it is. But moving it is not an opposition. Just be aware that's probably $75,000 to $100,000 decision we'd have to make if that's what we need to do at the time. So before we would just say, yes, we will move it today, but I'd like to give it to the continued effort on improving the existing facility. Is there spots on other sides of the barn, you know, that I believe probably would work? And maybe, you know, with this new barn and getting a little path to go back there, maybe there is a new opportunity for somewhere else to put it further away. I'm not saying that we're opposed to that. Just don't have that answer today. And in the winters, it's, you know, a snow removal thing to get back there and properly manage it and different things like that, that we'd have to consider before we sit in a boardroom today and just say, well, that looks good type thing,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Amy, if, we go with Greg's language, is there some teeth that we can put in there if you do not follow best practices? Boom.
If we had if we had a condition that proper management of the mortalities must occur, we'd be monitoring for that. If we found that it wasn't, when we have it would be a violation of the condition, and we'd be communicating that with the operator that, and then give them some time to correct it. We then would be identifying what they're doing wrong. And then they would need to, and then we would monitor that. If it continues, then it could get to the point where I'd be bringing this back to you saying, hey, we can't get compliance with this condition. And then that opens that up for discussion with the board as far as either revising the condition or revoking the permit. So
So we could revoke permit.
yes, if we find
fine.
that that condition is not being met, of course, we'd be making the case as to why it isn't
You have to,
being
yeah.
met. We
rightfully
would
so.
have to be making that case.
I would second his Commissioner Blaine's position.
okay.
With the language Amy just,
I would ask the question that if we were to, and we've had plenty of conversation, to have a Wakefield representative and or the owner of that in particular facility to come here on a quarter for the next 2 years, I think I heard that, talk about the issues. Would we do that at a planning meeting? I really don't know that we would expect somebody to write out a check to go through the planning commission thing. We just asking that question. How would that be done?
Mr. Chair, we've had conditions on other conditional use permits and interim use permits where there is, the one I'm thinking of, it's an annual update to the board. And that's really just an informational thing saying, here's where we're at, here's how it's going, like a touch base with it. It's not a hearing, no decisions are being made. It's really just that touch point. And so that condition could be whatever frequency you would want to be hearing from them. And then that would be a condition that they would need to be coming either to a planning session or a county board meeting. I don't know that it would make a difference.
And any further from the board? Chance, gentlemen, Commissioner Blake?
You know, Mr. Chair, you raised a good point and Amy's response to that, this is, you know, more of a unique issue that we've had with this request, or this CUP request and that. You know, if the rest of the board is okay with the language that I put forward before and that Commissioner Lemire seconded, I think I would maybe offer a second condition out there with the request that Mr. Plant and Wakefield would come and visit us in 12 months and share with us their efforts and successes and failures on addressing the mortality management. And so we would have, you know, I'm not saying that, you know, we're putting them on the judgment seat there, but I think it would be helpful for us because this won't be the only hog facility that will come before this board to be licensed into the future. I'm sincerely interested in trying to get to the bottom of what the root cause of this issue is at this facility and why we don't have the same issues at 34 other hog production facilities in the county. And I'm almost thinking we'll find out that there were adjustments that had to be made to management, to resources, to other things that will be revealed to us at that time, and success will be achieved there. But I do think, especially with the amount of discussion that we've had on this and the look into this, that it wouldn't be too much to ask to have them come back and visit with us at a board meeting and giving them 12 months. That gives them a couple of cycles for changing carbon resources out, which are a huge part of composting success. So I think I'd like that, and I'm gonna make a motion to add that as a second condition to this permit.
That would be just adding it as a second condition, because we've got a motion right now. Which you make both of those conditions, suggestions.
I'll second this.
And I'm absolutely okay with it. We have to do something. And that is doing something.
And I think, and Mr. Chair, if I may, I also think that the public and the neighbors up in that area also are expecting us to having some level of oversight to the degree that we can, and that we can, the tough part of this is how do you measure, and it's not so much how you enforce, but it's more how do you measure, because the issue is through your nose, it's not through your eyes or ears. And so it's subjective in my estimation, Mr. Chair.
So I would look, Amy, do you have two conditions?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Could you read those two conditions?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
The first one is proper management of the mortality facility must occur.
Okay.
And two, Mr. Plant, or I'm gonna say the feedlot operator, because that
Yep.
the feedlot operator and Wakefield must provide an update to the county board on the mortality management within 12 months, or at 12-month
Yeah.
mark.
Sure.
I would like that, Mr. Chair, if I
Yep.
may, I'd like that to be in person.
Okay.
An in-person update.
Correct. All right.
So we
got
can
that.
have dialogue.
Gentlemen, are there any other conditions that come to your mind to go along with this issue?
I'm gonna make one, it's not a condition, a comment that was brought up too about the road. And it has nothing to do with this, we address, the township address the road, it's the township's road, if they think they can handle this, I'm all for it, because I'm not gonna tell them how to, come down trucks. The township stated that they can handle the trucking, so that's, their road, so that's one,
Yep, very clearly, be good. I did have conversation with a couple of individuals regarding that also, and I was very clear, the township road. And that's that. Gentlemen, anything further?
Mr. Chair, before you go to vote, the original motion and second that brought this into discussion was by Commissioner Lemire, second by Commissioner Wincher, that generated this dialogue. So as long as Commissioner Lemire will amend his motion from the original
And
with conditions and
Those
and
two conditions.
Commissioner Wincher's.
that's that. Gentlemen, I will ask again, further discussion.
good catch.
Further discussion. Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Lincoln, thank you very much for being here today. That I truly appreciate, and I truly appreciate the discussion, the whole sense of what you're here for.
Thank you.
Miss Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think we're gonna take a couple, 3, 4, 5 minute break.
I used up all my words, so I'd be sorry. Everybody's gonna
All right, so the meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda is the sheriff's report, Sheriff Larson. And he's got one of his cohorts with him today. Tim Rowan.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Morning, Sheriff. Morning, Tim.
Chair, members of the board. So our report is approximately an hour and a half long. We're gonna try and cut it down.
That's just it.
Cut it down to just.
Well, Sheriff, first of all, thank you for being so patient. Actually, I know that at the end of the day, we did have a long discussion on our last item. And I know that you understand that. That's why you still.
Just gotta crack a joke.
Hope you learned something through that.
Yeah. So
Continue,
yeah,
please.
Mr. Chair, this is our monthly report for July. I brought Tim with, because as you'll see in the top picture, we had our 51st rec program. Again, that's Residents Encountering Christ. It's a faith-based program that aims to provide spiritual guidance, and we bring that to our jail residents, twice a year. We try to anyway. That being said, I think everyone's aware that in our jail, there's depression, there's sadness, there's feelings of guilt, there's hopelessness, there's anxiety. Sometimes there's suicidal subjects in our jail. So this is just a program that can kind of lift people up, if you will. We believe it's our calling to be able to offer this program. And I'll turn it over to Tim because he does a great job. Tim and our staff and all the volunteers that come in to make this program.
Very good.
Well, the program took place the end of July, on Saturday and Sunday. We had 40 volunteers come in throughout the weekend. Of 40 residents in the jail that were eligible to go to the program, 28 went and 25 finished. The thing I wanted to point out to the board, I pointed this out to the sheriff, this last rec weekend was different than some of the other rec weekends because for a couple of reasons. First, in our jail, we have some local people that get out. It's sad to say, but a month or two later, they come back. So what some of these people, residents did, they came back, they were pushing other residents to go to this program. Sign up, try it out. It'll help you. It's going to be good for you. That's why we get our numbers up so high, because other residents push other residents that haven't went to go to the program. And I also saw in this last rec program that the 40 volunteers, a lot of them were more deep into it, more faith-driven, harder yet more emotional, more willing, more dedicated to try to help these residents better themselves through faith, through acts of God, through what we can do in this program to try to make them better. It's a program that it is the hands down, it is the best program the state of Minnesota has to offer for any incarcerated individual. Hands down, there's no program that can beat this program. That's why a lot of the programs that I have in the jail, we have in the jail, are faith-driven programs. Church, rec weekends, pilot outreach on Wednesday nights, stuff like that. And I've been here for 33 years and I've done this program a ton of times. And I can honestly say this. This doesn't mean nothing. Neither does this. All right, careful here. Because if you don't have Christ here, what good are we? Honestly, what good are we? How can we help these people? How can we help them? We keep pushing this program to try to make these inmates better. To get rid of the sadness, to get rid of the demons, to get rid of the evil. To try to make them better. That's all I have to say. And it did go very, very well. The last rec weekend went really, really well. A lot of these volunteers are residents of this county. They go out and talk to other people. I'm sure they've probably spoken to some of you guys at some point too. They go into the stores, they go wherever, gas stations, and they talk about what they've done, how they've helped the residents. It's a great program. And as long as I'm here and further down the line, it's gonna continue with his support and mine. We'll keep right on a roll with it.
Two things, and I'm gonna look to the board for anything further. Two things. One, Sheriff, thank you. Two, Tim, thank you. Statement. Been around for a long, long time. Law enforcement field, jail field. I've been there. I know very clearly. I've heard very many testimonies, many from you, Tim, on what a great program this is. And that is why I personally will continue and continue and continue to support this. Anyone got a comment from the board? Commissioner Casper?
I'd just like to say thank you to both of you. It's up the Lord what you're doing, and you are making a difference in these people's lives. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, please continue.
We'll move on then. So the next photo is Deputy Brady Prusak. And of course, picture on the left was when he was in the hospital, St. Cloud Hospital after his accident, which occurred on July 15th, where he was struck by a vehicle. Picture on the right, he's at home, he's recovering well. He's doing well, his neck brace is finally off. There's going to be a lot of healing that needs to take place before he comes around. That being said, he has a fractured femur as well as a fractured tibia. His mindset is just amazing. He wants to be back. He wants to come back to light duty. So of course, we're waiting for clearance from the doctor and get all the proper paperwork, but we do have a lot of light duty jobs for him once he returns. So he's pushing that. We'll see what we can do to accommodate that, but he's mentally driven in the right direction. And of course, I'm just getting information from him, but it's probably a minimum of 4 months minimum before he'd be able to return without any restrictions. So it's making progress. I just want to update the board on that as well.
Fantastic.
And then we'll just skip this page. I'll just kind of highlight the criminal complaints, if you will, please. So the criminal complaints, I'll just kind of highlight the pink 6 o'clock position on the pie chart, damage to property. We had 23 total complaints, and a lot of those complaints were mailboxes that were damaged. That was the majority of them. I believe it was 14 mailboxes out of that. So the next one is theft, which is the 9 o'clock position in the blue. We had 23 thefts. Majority of those were gas drive-offs, as well as mailbox thefts as well. And some of those obviously we recovered. So that's just kind of a highlight of what occurred in the month of July for criminal complaints. The next page.
You have,
Oh, yes.
excuse me, Sheriff, you have 9 DWIs. Do you have an enforcement program, or is that just common, this happens?
Well, it's going up, and I was going to address that on the next
Okay,
page.
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's good. So the next pie chart kind of shows the DUI. So when you look at the top, it's January 1, 2023 through July 31st. So that's 7 months worth of data. You'll see we had 14 DWIs for drugs, 33 for alcohol, and 1 combo. So 1 came back, alcohol and drugs. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we're at with the data thus far throughout the year. And then if you look at the bottom graph, you'll see we had 10 drugs, 87 alcohol-related DWIs. So we had 113 total in 2022 for a 1-year period. And then, of course, through July 31st this year, we have 53 total. So, Mr. Chair, when you look at that, it's showing that there is definitely an increase in our drug DWIs. And a lot of that is just knowledge being shared from some of our deputies who've been through certain training. We added a deputy just recently that was recognized for DUI enforcement through the state. And he's been sharing a lot of his knowledge, which is some of the best training that you can get. And the guys are just, they're more comfortable with writing search warrants. They're more comfortable with recognizing certain behaviors that they need to factor in on the roadside. So kudos to our entire staff for stepping up. And I think you'll see that statewide, that the number of driving while intoxicated under a legal controlled substances on the rise.
And that would probably be due as of August first.
Some of that has to do with the new law, correct, Commissioner? Yes.
Again, I know it's not in the data, but it'd be interesting to see what 6 months, a year, what that about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Going to our traffic citations, I'll just kind of highlight what we're seeing. We had 301 total traffic citations. The breakdown with that is 12 o'clock position. We had 14 failure to obey traffic signs, which is our stop signs. So 14 citations issued for that. There was 29 speeding citations, 29 written warnings. And then the big blue section on the bottom, we had 197 verbal warnings. The 2-year comparison, everything's kind of increased with the exception of civil papers, as well as our total inmate count. And then the next page. This is where you'll notice that Beltrami County, we averaged 22 inmates for the month of July. Itasca County, we averaged 1. And that brought our total population average, including Morrison County and Ottawa County, to 55. The next page, I'll just highlight the Ottawa County inmates. Number of inmates held for other counties was 35. We brought in revenue for boarding Ottawa County inmates, 39,645. So kudos to our staff and just for working hard and making this work. So with that, I am available for any questions, if there's any questions.
Gentlemen, questions for the sheriff? Comments?
He did it less than an hour and a half.
He did.
Yeah.
He actually did a pretty good job.
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, I'll comment on the early slide about Officer Punzak.
Please.
And I had the opportunity to be at a meeting within the city of Flensburg. And I was blown away that Brady, who is also, not only is also an officer here with the sheriff's department, but is also a member of the village council in the city of Flensburg. And the Senate bonding committee made a stop there, so it was a big day for the village of Flensburg. Brady Punzak walks to that meeting from his house, doesn't get a ride or have somebody bring him over, walks on his sticks from his house to the community center with a gigantic smile on his face, and the desire to be there and represent his community. And first thing he said to me is, "It won't be long, it won't be long." And he goes, I'm gonna be able to lift more. And I can't even remember what the time frame was he told me, but the guy is dialed in on the positive ship, and he's gonna be just fine. He has a horrifying experience that he'll have to carry with him through his life. But I think mentally and physically, he's gonna beat this physically because he's already beat it mentally. And when you're around him, you just feel so much better just being around someone that positive and that driven. And so I wanted to share that with the rest of the board too, because he made me smile all the way home. He asked if I give him a lift home. No way, and off always on them sticks, and he's a true man.
Outstanding. Great attitude. What we do is we need to look to the sheriff, we need to look at Tim, and we need to say, one day, Deputy Punzak is gonna be back.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of hoping that the sheriff's gonna bring him back here to a boardroom and say, guess who's back?
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that. Tim, I'm very happy that the sheriff brought you along, and police sheriff, you can bring them along anytime you want, and I know you know that, but thank you for what's going on upstairs. When I made the comment about the rec weekend, truly mean that. And things like that don't happen without people like you. I've known you for a long time. I know what your job is, but it's much more than a job. So Tim, thank you very much, Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to Fort Douglas for lunch.
Yeah.
Next on our agenda is the extension report, and Dana is with us this morning, who has been back there very patient for the last long time. So thank you very much for sticking around. I know that sometimes it gets kind of dabbling up here, or at least that's what it seems like.
Actually, good morning. I really enjoyed the, is really, I'm using a. Yeah.
It's good word.
I see value in the discussion around nuisance smells. And when they said the University of Minnesota, I was just like, I know Melissa Wilson. She is a wonderful human being and she's very good at her job. Yes, so we used some time. I did find it of value.
Excellent.
So I wanted to hit on a couple of things. I don't think I can remember the last time I was in this seat. It's been a little bit.
It's been a while,
Yeah, I feel like a
Thank
year.
you for being here.
So, since then, but in June, I had Farmers Night Out, which I focused on calf management. We held it in Stearns County and it had a panel of 3 producers that manage their calves in different ways. And so we had 25 people in attendance at that program. And they got to hear about pair housing, which is something that's newer. So bringing that, the classic individual hutch, group housing, and then paired housing. And just having that free flowing discussion about how do they manage their cattle, their calves well? And what are they doing? Some tips and tricks you picked up, discuss among yourselves, all over a free lunch. Free dinner. So I was very happy with how that program went. We had 2 interns this summer. Gracie Schultz was our intern from Morrison County, and she was very helpful in facilitating that discussion. And also, because that was round about the time that milk price bottoms just like fell out. She talked about mental health resources. So it was an excellent opportunity for her to familiarize herself with resources around mental health that the University of Minnesota offers, and to give her a chance to public speaking, stand in front of your peers and do a little like song and dance. I was very happy with how she did. I also attended the Morrison County Fair. I do find it of value to be at all my counties fairs because I cover 4 counties, but I also know that my dairy producers, my beef producers are there. They see me and then they recognize me. And I say this because at the Morrison County Fair, I had 2 producers, oh, you're back. And I'm like, you recognize me. I'm a familiar face. I talk to your kids. I see them at the state fair. Like, I've been to your farm, or I want to go to your farm. Can I come and visit? So a excellent opportunity to build those relationships that are just so the backbone of Extension is our relationships in the community. In August 8th, we had the Central Dairy Field Day at Funk's Midway Dairy. They have 2 sites. We were at one of their sites and we had the 3 brothers talk about how they manage their dairy farm well. So we had one of the brothers talk about crops production and forages. We had another brother talk about their conventional parlor system and why they send some of their cattle over to their other site that has their robots on it. And then we had one of their farm staff talk about their multiple reproductive enterprises. Some of they breed some to beef, and they, like the rest, they breed to just conventional Holsteins, but there's a very active decision process in that. So their farm staff, Shorty, did a wonderful presentation that got rave reviews because one of the Carl said Shorty was really nervous because he wasn't sure his English was good enough. And I'm like, no, they loved you. You did a phenomenal job, sir, talking about their multiple reproductive enterprises. And the last thing was one of the brothers, Jeff, spoke about how they manage or work with their farm staff and how 3 brothers and a father work well managing a dairy together, which if you work with family, it can be very difficult. So a great program that I was very proud of. We had 125 people in attendance. That barn was packed. And I took one photo of just like tables and tables and tables of people having good, honest discussions. And I saw producers from Benton County who made the drive. I saw producers from Morrison County who made the drive. And of course, because it was in Stearns County, those in Melrose who had, like, their neighbors who came to chat and see friends and family. And then of course, ag business, which is a part of our community. So that program went very, very well. As I mentioned before, we had 2 interns, one of which was Emerson Roy. He was from Minneapolis, so not accustomed to being out here. He was able to find accommodations right next to St. Cloud State, and he was based out of the Stearns County office. He had more of an interest in pollinators, but I'm like, no, I'm a livestock educator and I'm here. We're going to go to farms. We're going to see dairies. We're going to see beef operations. He tabled at the Central Dairy show in June, and he was just, I was very proud of him because coming from the city and having not have been around a cow and they're within like 5 feet of you, do not move rapidly, just be calm. It's going to be great. He did very, very well stepping into his own. And Gracie Schultz did a great job putting together, her project for the summer was a seed library and building, like reaching out to local like Home Depot and local retailers, as well as engaging our master gardeners in a program that we've wanted to do for some time now, build that seed library so that people can like rent seeds and then return seeds at the end of the growing season. So that is a program that we've wanted to do, that she said she took interest in, that she stepped in, and now because of her, we are building our seed library, engaging our master gardeners and building that program. So they both did very, very well. And I feel like we haven't engaged interns from Morrison County in the past, and this was our first year and it went very, very well. On December 5th, I'm holding a reducing market risk program at the Innovation Center in Little Falls. And I'm asking specialists, a youth specialist to talk about green marketing, one of the farm business managers to come and speak about taking advantage of the DMC program and as well as what the FBM program, that data can offer to your operation and making decisions. And then another speaker to come and talk about managing risk. And then I'm having Tyler Rice speak about pricing silage and hay, because so many calls about pricing the silage and hay. There's publications, but a lot of times people want someone to work with them on understanding how those decisions are made. And he will be speaking at that program about how to price silage and how to price hay. So I'm engaging Pine Country Bank as well as Farmers and Merchant State Bank to sponsor this program and also target people who might find it of value. But the goal is to engage dairy producers. Of course, it is open to everyone. Just because our dairy market is not great right now, it is, according to the rumor mill, it is getting better. It is so far away from being strong enough or really covering expenditures for our dairy producers. So I am trying to address that knowledge, that financial knowledge, and that financial literacy through this program. And I would love to engage you to help me market and advertise this program. Of course, I'm going to put up flyers, I'm going to send emails, but nothing goes as far as a personal connection, a personal invite to I heard about this program. If you think it might be relevant to you or someone you know, that would go miles.
Give us the
December 5th. We're gonna start at 10 and go till 1. I'll fully anticipate people sticking around for an hour or two.
Location of these.
The Innovation Center. We're in Little Falls. I'm fully.
Okay.
Foundation.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're fine.
Do you have any questions for me?
I have none, but I can understand why any intern would want to work with. You're amazing. You truly are. And
try.
I'm not just saying that. You build connections simply because of who you are. And obviously, connections remember who you are. Oh, you're back. I love it.
Yeah, right.
I love it. There you go. Gentlemen, anything for Dana?
Great information again. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Of course.
Appreciate it. And thank you for sticking around. And I know it's long. Thank
It's like one, maybe two. So I treasure them.
you. Excellent. Thank you very, very kindly. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Keep smiling.
Thank you very much.
You bet. God bless you. All right, I'm gonna turn to our administrator. I'm gonna say, Mr. Administrator, it's been a kind of a longer meeting, and I'm certainly not looking for you to shorten things up. Whatever you've got, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just the two items of note. One is a reminder that next week on September 5th, we are scheduled to have Representative Isaac Schultz here in attendance, where he will be giving the board a legislative update from the state's perspective. So we look forward to Representative Schultz's visit. And then second, I just felt excited to share with the board that our mental health resiliency training for our staff is scheduled for September 7th to occur in two sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. You're more than welcome to attend. It's 8 to noon and then 12:30 to 4:30. And we've got right at 200 staff members signed up for that. So for that day, there will be continued services in the government center. It may be reduced a bit as we offset staffing to attend this training. But we're excited for this and look forward to get some positive feedback. But other than that, that's all I have for the board, and any questions.
Anyone have anything for the administrator? Thank you. Matt, thank you very kindly. I'm going to turn to the board, and I'm going to suggest that you open up your calendars from September 3rd through September 16th are the dates that we're going to talk about. We ready to go?
Sure you are.
I'm ready to go. I don't have much of anything to report on at all that first week, so I'm going to move into the 11th of September at 6:30 at night. Morrison County Public Safety is meeting here in the boardroom. That's our first responders. That's such like that. Morrison County Public Safety here in the boardroom at 6:30 on Monday, the 11th. On Tuesday at 9 o'clock in the morning, County Board. On the 13th is the first day of the AMC Policy Committee in Alexandria. On the 14th is the second day of the AMC Policy Committee in Alexandria, and things wrap up on Friday with the AMC Policy Committee. And that's all I have. I'm going to turn to Commissioner Winchell.
Okay, now again, just that we have a planning session on the 5th, I believe. And that's at 8:30, and then we have budget afterwards. And then we have also Planning Commission Board of Adjustment afterwards at 6 o'clock. And then we all have a Green River Regional Library Board on the 12th. And that's at 5 o'clock in St. Cloud. And then other than that, Commissioner Zelinski covered you.
Commissioner Lemire.
On the 6th at 2 o'clock, I have a Lake Chaminade High Water Outlet Project Pre-Construction Conference at Scanning Valley Town Hall. 7th is at resiliency training. 11th, I have Yellow Ribbon meeting, Little Falls Legion, 3:30. 13. There's a government meeting. That's all I got.
Commissioner Blaine.
On Monday, the 11th, there will be a Mississippi River One Watershed One Plan public hearing on the actually scratch that. Tabitha, I'm gonna, no, I just noticed something because I may have penciled that in earlier and forgot that and forgot to describe that, so, because there is, at the end of the month, we have our big public hearing and meeting, policy committee meeting at Camp Ripley. So I just realized that, and I apologize. If I find that does still exist, I would let you know, but other than that, that's all I have, in those first 2 weeks.
Commissioner Casper.
Yeah, I think I've got just a couple, the Zoom meeting for the Central Minnesota Council on Aging on September 7th on that Thursday at 10 o'clock. And the Trails meeting that evening at 6:30 at City Hall that same day. And then over on the 11th, that Monday, I've also got a Zoom meeting for the Rum River watershed. And I also have another trails meeting on the 14th at 6:30 at City Hall. I think that is it. I guess on the 7th, I don't know, I guess we're probably all invited. Habitat for Humanity has like an open house over at 612 7th Street Northeast. I may try to get over to see that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
On that one, Commissioner Casper, it's, and I talked to, I think it's Karen, and they're doing a build project, or Kathy, and they're in the sheet rocking phase. So, if you do plan to attend, bring your tool belt.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do it. Is that all you've got?
That's it. Thank you.
And I had 2 items, Mr. Chair.
Please.
On September 11th at 8 o'clock is a Patriot Day ceremony, 9/11 remembrance ceremony vicinity, the Sheriff's Memorial Site, just west and south of the historic courthouse. Again, 8 o'clock on Monday, September 11th. If you'd like to attend, it'd be very well. It'll be brief, semi-informal. Chaplain Valentine will give some remarks, and that's how we'll start that day at 8 o'clock. And then on Wednesday, the 13th, the county's hosting a blood drive here, and I just wanted to share that for those listening.
Anything further?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll look to the board. Anything further from anyone that needs to be addressed at this time? All right. Hearing nothing, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Got a motion? Need a second?
I'd second that.
Got a second? Those in favor? Aye. This motion, or this meeting is adjourned. It is 11:25.
Well, what about you?
Would you